Like, they don't care.
Well, I think with high school, it's like, they're just pumping.
But when she was in elementary and junior high, all the teachers worked with her. They were nice about it. But by high school, there's so many kids that just don't care. And I was like, just take it. You're so smart. Let's just take it and see if you pass it. She passed it. Like,
and got a really good score?
Yeah, she passed it with like college ready in every category the first time. Okay, so,
I told you, it's a crazy question.
Well, so we moved into this house 3 weeks ago because he offered to get me a house here where all my family is. So we were in Houston. And so he's like, we had decided to separate or whatever. So he's like, well, I'll pay for a house for you and for JJ and whatever, because he's all about JJ. He's never about Tylee, but he's all about JJ. Because we adopted him together. He's his great nephew. We adopted him as a baby. And so we adopted him as a baby, and so we've been raising him together. And he travels all the time for business, so he's used to just going back and forth. So he's always gone like Monday through Friday. So he came when we first moved in and brought me stuff from Houston, like a U-Haul. And then he hasn't been back. But it's all these threats on my phone all the time, you know, like whatever, all these things. And I let him take him, and I didn't file anything or whatever. And then he filed something against me and said, I'm only going to get supervised visits because I'm crazy and blah, 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 you know, the story. And so I just didn't talk to him for like 30 days and let him take care of him and let him see what I've been doing for the past 7 years, because men need to do that. You know, I have 5 kids, I have grown kids, I have grandkids. Like, Hawaii, he'd work in California, he'd work in Texas, he has like books of business in different areas. And so he just goes wherever. It kind of just gives him freedom that he doesn't have to stay home every day and take care of special needs child.
You're stepping over a line now. You're stepping over a line, you know you are.
He came over in the morning and he's like banging on the door. I'm like, oh great, here we go, you know. And I was just gonna be nice. I was just gonna be nice as possible. And I had JJ stuff all ready for school. And so.
Do you remember about what time he got there?
He said he'd be there 7:30, but it was more like 7:40-ish or 7:35. I don't know.
Okay.
But I remember thinking, looking at the clock, and he wasn't there at 7:30, and he's usually Mr. On time. Yes. So I was like, okay. And then JJ was like, oh, Dad. And then he was like, Mommy, and like ran to me and was like holding me. He's like, you're not taking me to school. And I was like, it's okay, Daddy can just drive you to school. It's not a big deal. You know, just trying to make it whatever.
Calm.
Yeah, calm. And then he was just being real smirky and real like jerky, you know, to me, and I was like ignoring him, whatever. Just like that, like backwards, almost in one arm.
Like he was swinging, like swinging it backwards. He would have done like
he would have swung it backwards at me, not frontwards.
Okay, yeah.
He was a professional baseball player.
Okay.
So it wasn't a good idea for Tyler to get out of that.
Probably not the.
I mean, he played semi-pro when he was young. But. Away from him.
Did your brother say anything to you at all? Do you remember?
No, we were both just in shock.
Okay.
Like, it was just I didn't say anything. I went out with the kids just to check on them first, and I was going to come back in maybe, but I didn't. I was like, I just have to get him to school and call the police and come back, you know, whatever.
Did anybody say did you or your brother say anything at some point about calling the police or calling 911? Do you remember?
Yeah, he called me.
Okay.
And he said, are you taking JJ to school? And I said, yeah, we need to call the police. And he said, okay.
Okay. Is there anything else that I didn't ask about or anything that we didn't cover that you think is important? I always ask that just because I wasn't there, and so we're going through something that happened a super small amount of time.
Yes. Can I step like
yeah, go for it.
Just thinking.
How long have you lived here?
Like 3 weeks.
Oh, geez. Yeah, okay.
That's why the neighbors don't know us.
Gotcha.
Like, hi neighbor, sorry.
Now, the person who called is my sister-in-law, but she's his natural grandmother. He's adopted by us. Okay, so her son, who is a drug addict, had a baby with a girl who's a drug addict, and they took him from, CPS took him. Gave him to the grandmother. She came and got him, and then she wanted us to adopt him, which we did. And we loved him.
By
and
us?
my husband and I. who died earlier this year. Okay. He passed away. Since he passed away, she's been trying to fight me for him and being really horrible to me and that kind of stuff.
Sure, Jan.
So what happened was my husband, who we were married for 15 years and had raised all these 5 kids together, switched his life insurance policy to her, right? To his sister, who got $1 million when he died. And we got nothing. For me to raise JJ, and all the kids got nothing, and everybody got nothing. She got $1 million.
That have been here for 8 years because of family tragedies. It's the same like my case. A family tragedy, not a crime.
Who'd you talking about?
Yeah. Obviously, you were convicted of killing your kids. Where does that
Wrongly
disconnect?
convicted.
You believe wrongly convicted?
Absolutely, 100%.
Are you prepared for a life behind bars?
Sure.
How? What do you do to prepare that to be the rest of your life?
My life is mostly over because I'm 51 years old.
First of all, you dumb-ass fucking bitch. I have been so fucking nice to you about your mental health problems. I'm sorry.
Why throw it away?
It's tragedy. Families have tragedies. Things happen, and there was a domino effect of tragedies in my life, and that's really sad.
Ms. Daybell, what's the objection?
So for 5 years, of course, he's been on the witness list to be a regular detective, and now he's being put on as an expert. I feel like to give his opinion instead of just stating the facts. So that was my main concern.
I guess let me flesh this out a little bit more. Let me ask the defendant, you've said a couple different things. Are you saying he's not qualified as an expert, or just that the disclosure came in late and you don't think his opinion is relevant?
Well, one, I don't think his opinion is relevant, but also the fact that he's named as a firearms expert. So I don't know if he took a weekend class and that made him a firearms expert. I don't know what his experience was with that. In his CV, it just says firearms expert. So.
Did you ask him those questions? Was it you that interviewed him or your investigator?
My investigator interviewed him.
Do you know if he asked questions regarding his background,
sure.
training, or expertise?
Okay, so I haven't listened to that yet, so I'm not quite sure. My concern was that he was a regular detective on the witness list for 5 years, and then 30 days before trial, he's now an expert so that he can give his opinion. And I just thought that was my objection.
Do you want to have further argument?
Just the fact that this information that is supposed to be coming forward is not. All these witnesses are getting together and talking about all this and comparing all their notes and all these things beforehand, and then they're telling us that in these interviews. Well, I talked to her 100 times. Well, I talked to her every day. Well, she told me this. Well, she told me that. So their information is not firsthand. These witnesses are all coming together. They're all watching everything that goes on TV regarding this, and I would like them all precluded.
Okay, well, you're always allowed to cross-examine a witness about any biases they may have about those things that you've just talked about, colluding with other witnesses. Those are all areas of ripe for cross-examination, but they're not bases to preclude a witness.
State is claiming trial by ambush from the defense. Trial by ambush. How is the defense trial by ambush when they have interviewed every single one of these witnesses before in the last 5 years since this case started? They've interviewed every single person that has been on there. They have written, transcripted interviews and video interviews of all of these people. And so how they are relevant, these witnesses will testify if and when they are needed to add additional facts or fill in the blanks that the state will no doubt leave out in their case in chief, and they'll be called accordingly. I need them to lay perhaps foundations for evidence presented by the state. The same with Lonnie Dorkin. I need his testimony will be required if and when it's necessary to rebut digital information that the state will bring forward during trial. I feel like the state is trying to say, okay, if you want your speedy trial, guess what? We're not going to let you defend yourself. Guess what? You can't have any experts. And guess what else? You can't have any witnesses. You can't have anybody speak in your behalf. So good luck. Have a nice day.
All right, well, that's why attorneys sometimes take a long time to prepare for a trial, because they need to give notice of what all the testimony their witnesses are going to give. They need their experts to prepare reports. That's why your prior attorneys and your current attorneys were asking for more time to prepare the case. So you can't really have it both ways, that you want your speedy trial rights, but you don't want to give notice to the other side of what your evidence is.
I don't not want to give notice to the other side with the limitations at the incarcerated state where I am, and the limitations with OPDS of getting Lonnie Dorkin late in the game that they did. I've done everything in my power as a defendant to prepare the state and to give over everything that I could do within my power, with the limitations that I am an incarcerated person at this maximum security prison jail.
So when you say...
And I shouldn't be able to represent myself because of that fact? That negates my constitutional right?
I didn't say that. All right. I said that sometimes there are reasons to not go forward to trial as fast as you want. When you say things like they're going to fill in the blanks, that makes it really hard to assess what their relevant information is.
They have relevant information to a lot of factors that I got in the 404B information. For example, the life insurance. My father is a life insurance salesman. He worked with Charles on getting both life insurance policies, my $2 million policy and Charles' $1 million policy. He also tried to sell my insurance policy after Charles passed away. He also told me to go to call the insurance policy and said how to do that, how to call them when you're the beneficiary. I didn't know how to do any of those things. He has relevant information to that. My sister has relevant information to my brother Alex Cox and the whole situation of what happened on July 11th. These people have relevant information to the state's case, what they're accusing me of. There's very relevant information from a lot of these witnesses.
So what I'm struggling with is you just saying that it's relevant doesn't actually make it relevant. It may be relevant. I'm trying to find out the relevancy. What you said about your father being an insurance salesman and selling policies, that sounds relevant. It could be relevant to me. Who's your father? I don't know who your father is.
Barry Cox.
All right, Barry Cox. It sounds like even from what you're saying, though, you're not, depending on what the state produces at trial, you're not sure that these witnesses would have relevant information. It just depends, is what it sounds like.
Whatever they put up in their case in chief, am I not allowed to try to defend myself against that?
You're absolutely allowed. I'm just trying to figure out, I'm sort of a gatekeeper, and I need to make sure witnesses have relevant information. And just like you have the right to interview all of the state's witnesses, excluding victims' rights, people that can deny having an interview, they have the right to interview all your witnesses prior to trial so they can have an idea of what those witnesses might say on the witness stand.
I understand that, Your Honor.
So
they also have already interviewed all of them.
I'm not talking about police interviews or interviews that may have been done years ago. The prosecutor has the right to interview any witness prior to them taking the stand, just as you do.
These were not privileged communications. Where does she understand that where is she testifying for my attorney?
Well, I think because the context of the messages say, I'm trying to schedule a time and I'm trying to set up a confidential line, meaning
that was
this
before.
Is not confidential.
That's right. He said it wasn't confidential before MCSO gave him a letter saying your phone number is now confidential. Your phone number now has...
Okay, I'm not going to keep rehashing this with you. The fact that he's using different IP addresses and not messaging through the actual phone number that's protected, I think is part of the problem. So if he's not using the program correctly, That's an issue you need to take up with your attorney.
How is he using it incorrectly?
I just told you. He's not messaging through the phone number. He's using different IP
How can you message other than the phone number? I don't understand that.
I don't understand that either, but if it was from the phone number and it's for his cell phone, for example, it would be the same IP address for each communication. There's like 4 or 5 IP addresses.
It's taking her word for that's what happened. She's not under oath saying that that's what happened. Nate Eaton's not here to testify that that's what happened. They're the only 2 parties that are there to say that that is what happened. So that is my problem with it. I would like for one of them to get on the stand and say exactly what happened in that conversation and that she wasn't giving him legal advice. How do we know that she wasn't? It's a very curious situation that he called her and then he writes in his motion this statement that obviously comes from Ms. K. She seems to be a clear attempt by Ms. Daybell to use the rules of criminal procedure as a pretext simply to keep me out of the courtroom and interfere with my ability to report. We also don't know if he told her, don't come to the March 18th hearing because that's when they're going to serve you with your subpoena. So all these things come from there and we don't know who's saying it and you're just taking her word for it like you took her word for, oh, there's only 6 emails and there's no other emails. You're just taking her word for it as an officer of the court, and I think that she should have to be sworn in.
Well, you want me to just take your word for he must have gotten these things from Miss K, okay? Just because his motion says he thinks that you're noticing him as a witness to keep him out of the courtroom? I don't know why you take the jump to that is coming from Ms. K as opposed to his own volition. He also hired an attorney that said the same thing. Even if she had said you need to be served with a subpoena to have to show up in court, that is not an ethical violation.
Was the minimal amount of restraints, meaning if there was going to be an armed guard, then they would not have to do the belt. So I was confused by and wanted a clarification on what you were actually ordering because the DOs had a question about it with me this morning, so.
I ordered that you don't have to wear the leg restraint, but that you do have to wear the rack belt because that is not going to be visible to the jury. The leg restraint's a little more cumbersome and visible, and since you're representing yourself and you're going to need to approach the podium and those sorts of things, I ordered the removal of the leg restraint. You will, though, wear the rack belt. And then I said it's up to the sheriff's office if they want to. They can position a couple deputies in the back if they want additional deputies.
Well, their recommendation was that you wouldn't have to use the belt at all if they had the armed guard.
I read their response and their recommendation, and that's my order.
So what is it exactly?
That you have to wear the rack belt, but not the leg restraint.
And that they will or will not have armed guard?
It's up to them.
Are you aware through all of your investigation of this case that my brother was a stand-up comedian, Alex?
I had heard that, yes.
And that everything is a joke to Alex?
I can't speak for that.
So when you're interpreting all these text messages and making all these assumptions, half of them could be jokes and you would not know that? Well, you went around the whole entire house looking for blood, is that correct?
Yes.
And you had the gun in your possession?
Yes.
And you're in a police station?
I was at your house.
I'm saying you have access as the case agent to have any of these things tested, is that not right?
Yes.
So why didn't you test them?
Because I did not think that luminol was needed to be tested because there was no visual blood.
So wouldn't you like to know that for sure?
I guess you're making, we make choices and we make decisions through this process based on the facts that we have and the facts that are presented to us. And based on the facts presented to us and what we saw and what we had, I did not feel that was necessary.
You have charged me with a crime. Is that correct?
I have not, no.
You have helped them charge me with a crime. Is that correct? The state of Arizona?
I conducted an investigation and I sent it forward, yes.
And you did not feel it was necessary to test any of these things?
Objection,
as the case agent.
Answered like 4 times.
Sustained.
What logical reason do you have as an investigator to not investigate all of these things that were available to you for the past 5 years?
Your Honor, I'm again going to object to asked and answered. If there's a specific thing that hasn't been asked.
That's a really very broad question.
Jesus Christ knows the truth of what happened here. Jesus Christ knows that no one was murdered in this case. Accidental deaths happen. Suicides happen. Fatal side effects from medications happen. Because of this experience, I have access to heaven and the spirit world. Since then, I have had many communications from people now living in heaven, including my children, Tylee Ashlyn and Joshua Jackson, my sisters, Stacy and Lolly, my aunts and my uncles, and my grandparents. I have had many communications with Jesus Christ, the Savior of this world, and our heavenly parents. I've had many angelic visitors have come and communicated with me and even manifested themselves to me. Because of these communications, I know for a fact that my children are happy and busy in the spirit world. Because of my communications with my friend Tammy Daybell, I know that she is also very happy and extremely busy. I have always mourned the loss of my loved ones, and I have lost many in this mortal world. However, I know them more than most people. I know where they are now and what they're doing. I know how wonderful heaven is, and I'm homesick for it every single day. One of the times that Tylee came to me as a spirit after she died, she commanded me, and she said to me, "Stop worrying, Mom. We are fine." She knows how I worry and how I miss her. The first time JJ visited me after he passed away, he put his arm around me and he said to me, "You didn't do anything wrong, Mom. I love you, and I know you loved me every minute of my life." JJ, Joshua Jackson, was an adult spirit, and he was very, very tall when he put his arm around me. He is busy, he is engaged, he has jobs that he does there, and he is happy where he is. His life was short, but JJ's life was meaningful. JJ was a wonderful person and touched the lives of everyone, and I adored him every minute of his life. My eternal friend, Tammy Daybell, has visited me on several occasions. She came to bring me peace and comfort, and I know that she is extremely busy helping her family, especially her children and grandchildren. And I have a great love for Tammy.
I was going to do my podcast with stupid Melanie and Dave, right? So JJ wouldn't interrupt it. And then I was picking him up in the morning to get him ready and take him to school. And when I came in on that scene and they were gone, I thought Tylee did it to get back at me. I thought it was all my fault.
You're telling me Tylee took JJ's life, then took her own life, and then someone cremated her by dismembering her and burning her and throwing her in a pet cemetery, and then somebody bound JJ, put him in a trash bag, and threw him in the backyard. And that was it. That was the end of it.
What I'm saying is I wasn't aware what happened to them after I left that scene.
JJ was found fighting his bag that he was put in. So you're telling me Tylee held him down too long or put a bag over his head? Because that was the evidence that JJ was being suffocated by somebody. That was the evidence.
So that is not the case. So when I found those, my little precious babies, there was no bag, there was no tape,
Okay, so
there's
they're just
nothing
both
of
dead.
that. To get me to take my own life, because that is his goal. If I leave here, I cannot do my job for Jesus, right? The only thing I have to do for Jesus is stay here, right? He needs me here to help people.
Right.
Now, there's 8 women in my pod right now facing the death penalty. Okay? 8 women in this little jail. I help them every day. I help them doing their workouts. I help them doing all these things. I help them with their cases. Whether Jesus needs me to help him and serve him in primary or in prison, he asked me to do this.
Your Honor, in light of the juror misconduct or the alleged juror misconduct, I have to object to us having so much information go out about my personal information in that jury questionnaire. Do you not think that was a problem?
What personal information?
The state versus Lori Daybell.
What's the name of the case?
Yeah, but you don't put that on anyone else's questionnaire or one other person that's ever had that questionnaire ever put out with their name on it. They just don't do it.
Do it in every trial I've done.
Then the people are just going to Google it, and then we're going to have the same exact problem we had getting a jury for that case. We're going to have the same exact problem.
Are you done? Are you just going to keep? Okay. How do we screen for if people have heard about you if we don't include your name? Do you have a response to that?
I'm just saying, you gave them the name and they're just going to Google it.
They're instructed not to Google it, all right? And if you'll recall, when we had all the jurors come in person, one of the first questions I asked them in the afternoon was, who has looked up this case since you filled out the questionnaire? And we had 2 or 3 people raise their hand, and those people were excused. We have the defendant's motion for no restraints in trial dated May 6th. I don't know, in your motion, I don't know where you get the idea that the sheriff's office recommendation ever was that you have no restraints at all. Their minimum recommendation was that you wear a rack belt.
Well, I have it right here and I copied it verbatim.
Yeah, you said, what it said was my recommended minimum requirements as listed above, and those were to wear a rack belt.
It said, or the recommendation of MCSO was that they could have a unarmed detention officer and an armed deputy sheriff if I was to not have any restraints.
Right, but that wasn't their recommendation. I've received the defendant's motion. I've received non-party Maricopa County Sheriff Jerry Sheridan's response.
On the MCSO security justifications, my understanding is that was his recommendation.
Your Honor, Joseph V. Hill for the Sheriff's Office, if you have any questions.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll deny the motion from the defendant. The same conditions will be set that we had in the first trial, that being you wear the rack belt, no leg brace. There was one incident during the trial where you asked to take a break because a strap was hanging down behind your jacket. We did that. We rectified the situation. There's been no indication whatsoever that the jury noticed the rack belt or anything like that. So I think those conditions are appropriate and will remain for the second trial.
Your Honor, the jury was not polled to see if they noticed anything either. Was that correct?
Right. There was no request for that.
I have to ask that you would recuse yourself from the obvious personal bias that you have against me and send us to master calendar for this scheduling of a trial.
And what personal bias is that?
A lot, obviously the personal bias that you're showing right now and that you've shown on the FTR several times during the trial.
Okay, well, I don't have any personal bias, all right? I've over-accommodated you on when you have to disclose things In fact, your expert should be summarily precluded today, and I haven't done that. All right? So
You denied every single one of my motions for a year and a half that I've been here. Every single one of my motions has been denied. And have any of those motions not have merit? You've denied every single motion.
I think I was here this morning about 15 minutes ago when I granted your motion to meet with your attorneys over the lunch hour. I have granted other motions of yours. Okay?
That's the first motion that you've ever granted.
Well,
in my behalf.
File motions that have a legal basis, and I might grant them.
So you're saying none of my motions have had merit?
Not many, no.
And none of the motions that my first team, you denied every one of my first team's motions, you denied every one of my second team's motions, and now you denied every one of my motions until today.
I haven't denied every one of your motions.
Every single one of their motions was denied, every single one of the second team's motions were denied, and all mine. So you didn't come into this with any bias against me in the first place?
Again, file a motion that has legal merit, okay?
And none of my attorneys ever filed a motion with any legal merit?
They filed a motion on your behalf, the first team, to preclude media coverage, and I issued my ruling according to the law, all right? They filed a motion to have you dressed out, not in jail clothes during hearings like this, okay? That was not based in law. I denied that motion. So I've ruled on the motions as required by law.
Without any kind of a conclusion of law in them, just denied. Does that not show a bias and a prejudice against one single person?
All right, are you done?
Are you not going to recuse yourself?
No, I'm denying your motion. Anything else?
And I'm a smart person. I paid attention. I consider myself an intelligent person, like a lot of these other women here in this jail. And we're trying to do the best that we can. I know it's not going to be perfect the way an attorney would do it. So that's when people say, like, she has nothing to lose. Like, I don't necessarily think that I'm going to do a better job than the attorneys can do. That's not my intention. My intention is to say the things that I would say for myself. I mean, I sat there during a whole trial and I discussed a lot of things with my attorneys and asked them to say very specific certain things that were important to me, just as a person, as a human being. These things are important that you say this for me, and they wouldn't say it. So, and I get the professionalism and I get what they're doing, but sometimes you just have to be able to do it for yourself.
You want to be your own voice.
Yeah. Purpose.
A follow-up question to what you said, that you love everybody. Does that include your children?
Absolutely. I love my children. I've always loved my children. There's never been a question.
You believe you can convince a jury, this jury, to find you not guilty?
I don't think I'm there to convince anybody. I think I'm there to just tell the truth.
Wouldn't that be your goal, though, as your defense attorney, to be found not guilty?
I think that's a goal. Yeah, that's the goal of everybody. But I'm not trying to convince anybody. I'm defending myself against being wrongfully accused. So,
wrongfully accused of Charles' death as well?
Absolutely.
You know me, Summer. That's what I thought. You still do. Lori, if you let that happen to them and didn't tell us and lifted me in the ground like a piece of trash, then I don't know you, because you would have never done anything like that. That's correct. And if you knew and didn't tell us, that's not okay either. We love them. We would have taken them. We would have taken care of them. You could have gone off and done anything you wanted. If they were in any danger. I have no idea what happened. You're right. Nobody does, because you said nothing. Because everybody sees what's on TV. That has nothing to do with TV. This is when you're in my conversations before you left and cut me off. And now you expect me to be there for you, and you were going to abandon me? And if you weren't in jail, you wouldn't even be talking to me, and we wouldn't even know they were dead still. Then nobody knows except for you and the Lord. Yeah, ask him. I have. And guess what? I don't have one scripture that says it's okay for children to be thrown away like garbage in the ground. Nobody in the world knows what I've been through. And I don't expect you to. All you've seen is what's on TV. No, that's not what he says. And all the influences of all the people around. Okay, so now I'm deceived. Everyone in the world is deceived except for you. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that. I'm saying nobody's seen me on the floor crying. Nobody knows what I've been through with my children that I love more than anything. Lori, mine. You were dancing on a beach with a smile on your face, taking wedding photos. Yeah, months later. You don't trying to go on with life, trying to be happy, trying to find some kind of happiness. You think I want to be alone? Do you think that your mother and your sister and your son don't deserve to know that the children are gone?
You obviously don't know. You weren't there. You weren't there. Summer wasn't there. My mom wasn't there. The police weren't there. The FBI weren't there. Nobody was there.
Kylie and JJ, Mom.
Yeah, and guess what? They know. They know exactly what happened. And they love me. And we are still together forever. They love me. And they are fine. And they do know the truth. And I know the truth. And we're the only people that do. So you can judge me, Colby, all day long. Go ahead and judge me. The whole world has. The whole world has judged me.
Listen to me.
They don't know, and you don't know. You don't know what I've been through, and you don't even give a crap what they've been through. Nobody does. Except for me. I'm the one that knows. I'm the one that was in the hospital with Kylie for hundreds of days watching her suffer. I'm the one that was there doing everything with JJ every day. I was the one who did it all these years.
You did it all to throw it in the garbage. They're not.
You don't know what happened. You don't know what happened.
Freaking matter what happened if they're buried in your new husband's backyard. Tell me that matters what happened. You tell me that you did this in Jesus' name, Mom. I have to hear that out of you. If you believe it, that you are not afraid. Every witness of Christ will scream his name when he comes back. So you are that person.
I am that person. I am that person.
Christ,
and he will come to me. Oh, yeah, Colby, because that's what it is.
Okay.
You don't even know. You weren't even there, and you don't even know.
When I asked you about Tyler in October, what did you tell me? What did you tell me? What lies did you feed me? Why would you lie to me if you're with the Lord and you've seen him, and I'm just talking purely to you, and you've seen Jesus Christ, where's the fear? Why wouldn't you tell me something? Why were you afraid? Why is everyone against you? Why is everything against my mom?
You can be against me all you want. One day, we will all stand there with Jesus. We will all stand there with Jesus, and you will know the truth of everything. Not for me.
You're telling me that this was all done in light. Say it. Tell me that this was done in Jesus' name.
You don't know what happened.
East Idaho News. Can you tell me where your kids are? Where are your kids?
No comment.
No comment? They've been missing for 4 months. You have nothing to say? You're over here in Hawaii? Where are your children? Yeah, why don't you just give us a comment? Just tell us where they are. Chad, where are Lori's kids? What happened to Tammy, Chad? Can you tell us what happened to Tammy? Why have you guys been in Hawaii for so long? Listen, just tell people what's happening. There's people around the country praying for your children, praying for you guys. Why don't you give us answers?
That's great.
That's great. That's great that they're praying for you, praying for your kids. What? You have nothing to say? Did you do something to your children? Are your children still alive? That's a simple question. I've got 3 kids of my own. I can tell you every minute where my kids are at. Where are your children? What do you guys plan to do now? You have 5 days to get your children in front of a judge in Rexburg, then what? Are you guys innocent of any crimes? Have you committed any crimes? Chad, you guys have a lot to say on your podcast. You don't have anything to say now? Lori? Do you believe that you were instructed by God or others to do something for your children? If you could give a message to them, what would you say? Listen, if you just talk to us, we'll leave you alone.
family's worried. Tammy's family's very worried.
Tammy's family's very worried. Lori, your mother, Kay, came out. Kay and Larry, they're offering a $20,000 reward for your children. And you're over here on the beach? This is your chance to tell your story. Nothing you want to say? One last chance right here? Anything you want to say to the people in Idaho?
Hi. How's it going? Are you Kevin, Lori?
This is all you can serve.
Do you have any questions regarding that? So it is 14:39 hours on January 25th.
Do you need something?
Any questions? You have any questions for that? No? Okay. All right, have a nice day. Have a nice day.
And when was the last time we had any communications?
The last time I remember our communications was you and I were speaking in the kitchen when the family was over.
Okay, so you think that was that time in 2018?
I think so.
Okay. And were we eating my green chili chicken enchiladas?
Do not remember that.
You do not remember that?
Nope.
Is that what I made every time we had a family get together, which was like 10 times a year?
I don't remember that.
Okay. Were you aware at all of the relationship between Charles and Tylee?
It was, let's say, it was a bit contemptuous. It seemed like there was always a lot of drama going on, and so that's all I knew. He didn't say too much about it, and I didn't pry.
But you knew that there was some kind of contention going on with those two for
I can't
a while.
hear you.
I'm sorry. You did know that there was some kind of contention going on with those two for a while.
Yes.
Okay. And you weren't really aware of the events that happened that morning, were you?
The morning of his murder?
Of July 11th?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
Because you didn't tell me.
Miss Woodcock, did you see or hear or personally witness me conspire with Alex Cox to kill my husband, Charles Vallow?
No, but I saw a ton of evidence that did.
Date of Mr. Vallow's passing? July 11th. And what was the cause of his passing? Well, he was shot. Okay, so I don't know how I want to put that. Okay, all right. And I hate to ask, but is it? Yeah, you can just say yes or no. Was it a homicide? No, it was an accident. An accident, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. And what state did he pass away in? Arizona. Okay. Okay, just bear with me for one moment. I just need to pull up a few other things. Okay. Are you aware of who the primary beneficiary of the policy is? It's me.
This will show that Tylee was 3 years old when Charles and I got married, and that when she became a teenager, the relationship between Tylee and her stepfather, Charles, became so difficult that Tylee and Charles had to seek a therapist, a family therapist, to stop them from fighting. The evidence will show that together, Charles and Tylee met with this therapist after we moved back to the mainland in 2017.
The evidence will show that in April of 2018, Tylee's biological father passed away from a heart attack. And at that time, Charles called Social Security and made an appointment at the Social Security
I'm going
office.
to object to hearsay.
Sustain.
It will show that we did get Social Security for Tylee for her deceased father until she was 18 years old, and she was 15 years old at the time. The evidence will show that Charles and Tylee's fighting increased greatly in January of 2019 when Charles and I temporarily separated. The evidence will show that several people witnessed these terrible arguments between Tylee and Charles that increased to physical in 2019. Evidence will show that Charles began to scream at me when I refused to hand him his phone. The evidence will show that Charles' screaming woke up Tylee and Alex.
Sure, Jan.
The evidence will show that Tylee came out of her room with a bat to protect me, her mother, from her stepfather, Charles Vallow. The evidence will show that Tylee and Charles fought over the bat, and that after a struggle over the bat, Tylee fell onto the ground, and Charles lifted up the bat to hit Tylee with the bat. The evidence will show that Alex then intervened to protect Tylee from being hit with the bat. He did not have a gun. He was not wearing a shirt. He was pulling up his jeans because he just woke up and came into the room where he heard the screaming. The evidence will show that Alex and Charles got into a physical struggle for the bat and fell onto the ground. The evidence will show that Tylee, who was on the ground, was lifted up by me and sent outside to get away from the struggle and to protect JJ, who was still in the running car, in the rental car in the driveway. The evidence will show that after this struggle on the ground between Charles and Alex, that Charles prevailed with the bat and began to come towards me with the bat as I ran away from him into the kitchen. The evidence will show that at some point while I was running away from Charles, who was chasing me with the bat, that Alex apparently retrieved his gun. The evidence will show that I ran outside to the children and that Alex shot Charles in self-defense. The evidence will show you that I am the only person being charged with this crime.
I'm going to object to the relevance of that.
Sustained.
As the state has mentioned, they are alleging that insurance money was my motive. Social Security was my motive. Spouses having insurance policies is not a crime. Collecting Social Security is not a crime. Self-defense is not a crime. A family tragedy is not a crime. You did go on a date with a married man.
I went on a date with Charles.
But you did not know he was married.
I knew his divorce was not final.
His divorce was not started.
Okay.
Okay. So in your text messages, you asked Charles if he was a good kisser. Is that correct?
Maybe, sure.
Did he answer that text message?
I'm sure.
Object to
I'm sure he did.
relevance. Again, 611, harassment.
I'll sustain the objection for relevance and hearsay.
So are you trying to tell me and this jury that you went on one date with my husband?
My husband! My husband!
And he told you all the details of our lives?
I'm telling you the truth, and that's what I know.
So you spent your whole date getting to know each other, talking about me?
Don't flatter yourself. No, we did not spend the whole time talking about you.
You knew a lot about me, right?
I knew what I've testified to.
What else did you talk about on your date?
Lots of things.
Like what, for instance?
Life, kids, the church, lots of things.
Okay. Did he tell you about anything about our other 4 children?
Yes,
So you knew that we did have 5 children as well?
I did.
Okay. Did he talk to you about my daughter Tylee?
He did.
Did he talk about his relationship with her?
I don't recall that.
Did he talk about the contention in his relationship with my daughter Tylee?
I don't recall that.
I'm sure you don't. So there were some text messages between you and my husband.
My husband! My husband!
And after the dinner on July 10th, is that correct?
Correct.
What time would those text messages have occurred?
After dinner.
What time?
10:45-ish.
10:45 to what?
I'm not certain, ma'am. After dinner.
10:45 to midnight? Maybe?
I just told you I don't know. Maybe.
What did you discuss in those text messages?
And I'm going to object to relevance again. If there's a specific area.
Sustained.
You testified a minute ago that Charles told you a lot of things about his wife. You didn't say ex-wife, but you said wife. Is that correct?
Okay, sure.
What were a lot of things?
The things that I've testified to.
Can you be more specific?
Am I allowed to do a narrative then?
Are you sure you wanted to answer that question? Because you're opening up a really big door. If you want her to answer the question, I'll have her answer the question.
Hancock, you said that you had seen on TV that my husband had passed away. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you indicated after that you saw my sister-in-law, Kay Woodcock, on that show, and you reached out to her. Is that correct?
I didn't indicate that, but that is correct. I reached out to Kay after I saw that Charles had died.
Okay. And did you do that through Facebook or?
I did.
Social media? Okay. How many times between that first contact and now have you and Kay Woodcock communicated?
I've spoken to her just once. I've texted her here and there regarding. I've texted her here and there about other things. I don't know what I can say.
Okay. How many times have you texted her?
I have no idea.
Like more than 10?
Maybe.
Okay.